Has 2020 been stressful for you? Do you want to go into 2021 with a fresh mindset and feeling great? Stay tuned to this episode of Spirit Lift. Before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, and make appropriate comments as you listen to this incredibly important episode, as it truly helps to grow our channel, help to reach more people, and also get notifications by clicking the bell below for any upcoming episodes. In this episode of Spirit Lift, I speak with Matt Doxey from Tucson, Arizona. Matt is a mindset coach, and helps to empower and overcome people's greatest challenges that they face in their life. He also has a master's in psychology, and I am truly honored, Matt, to have you on this episode of Spirit Lift. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Devin. Super honored to be on your show today, so thank you.
Matt, thank you so much. And let's get right into it. We're coming to the end of 2020, and people, more than ever, people that I speak with, they want to know, how can I enter 2021 feeling more positive, more uplifted, more energized even, and just have a healthy mindset? There's too many people who are facing deep, impediments of mental health, depression, anxiety, stress, and they want to know the right way to feel renewed, even though we might still be dealing with the issue of the pandemic going into next year. They want to start right. They want to start fresh. So can you please tell our viewers firstly a little bit more about yourself?
Sure.
And what work you do to help people?
Yeah, no, thanks for the introduction. Thanks again for having me. So this 2020 has been just a very unusual year, as we know. And more than ever, I think we've experienced heightened amounts of stress and anxiety, and maybe some people have experienced some depression and things like that. And so my work, just to give kind of a brief synopsis of what I've done. So in 2017, even before that, I've actually dealt with some mental health challenges throughout my life, and was diagnosed with bipolar when I was 8 years old. And for me, I have made it my life's mission to focus on how to help other people overcome their challenges, because I have dealt with my own mental health struggles throughout my life. And I was always the one that just, people always said, you just can't do it. Like, it's okay. Like, you've got an illness, and I never felt like I wanted that to define me. And so I made it my life's work to research and to study and to focus on how I can help not only myself overcome some of the challenges, but help others. And so what I've done is over the years done lots of research on ways and tools in which people can support some of these things that we deal with in relation to anxiety, stress, things like that. And in 2017, I graduated with a master's in psychology, and I've wanted to. I've done a lot of research around mindset specifically, and one of the tools you had talked about, what can we do going into 2021? I mean, with this year, it's done a toll on some of our confidence, optimism. Maybe some people have some fear of, what am I doing? Or there's been a lot of people who have lost their jobs. The economies all over the world have been affected a lot. And so, if people have lost their jobs, if people are trying to discover who they are and who they can be, as we've dealt with some of these challenges this year, one of the things that I focus on first with all of my clients and with people that I work with is this idea of positive psychology. So that's what I've focused a lot of my work on, is how can we use positivity to help with anxiety, stress, things like that. And all of what I do, I'm not a doctor, so I guess first off, I need to explain that, all of the tools and the resources that I have and that I use, these are things that I have found and that I've found for my clients that have been able to support them. None of what I do and none of what I say is meant to diagnose or be a replacement for, medication or therapy or something like that. So just so the viewers understand, these are tools and things that people can use in addition to, or as they're looking for maybe different ways to support some of the stresses and things that may be going on. So just for clarity there. But I think the biggest thing, so the very first thing that I use with my clients, I discovered back in 2015, the Gallup StrengthsFinder assessment. I don't know if you've heard of that, but maybe that's something that can be poignant for the viewers. Is what this is this was a tool that was created by psychologists over 40 years ago, and there were several different psychologists who came together and said, what are some of the different ways in which we can identify people's strengths? And so what this assessment is, and I have all my clients take it, it is a tool that can help identify a person's top 5 signature themes, they call it, or strengths. And what I do is, number one, that helps people identify who they are. And it's not a what's the word I'm trying to use? It's not a horoscope, right? It's not something like, okay, here's your strengths, like this is who you are and you can't be anything else. But what I've found is a lot of my clients that deal with, things like depression, anxiety, stress, things like that, is we're dealing with sometimes with confidence or low self-esteem or things like that. And it's like, who am I? We all have unique, amazing talents and gifts. And so what I start with is we help people identify what their talents are, what their strengths are. Once they take the assessment, then what I do is I walk them through, okay, now I've gotten this report that tells me what my strengths are. What I use then is an opportunity to go through with them and help them understand how to empower them to know how to use those strengths so that they can find the right career. Or maybe they can work through some of the stresses and the anxieties that they have. Because once you know who you are and the difference you can make in the world, that's, in my opinion, that's the first step before we can even move forward with anything. We have to know who we are. We have to have confidence that we are an amazing and unique individual. We're something special. And there's no one else like us in the world. You, I, everybody else that's watching this, you're amazing and unique individual, and you have something that nobody else has. And so that's one of the things that I would say as we go into 2021. Do you know who you are? And do you know the kind of impact that you can make on the world in a world that's got a lot of uncertainties, unknowns? That's where I like to start with people. And then obviously I move forward with, there's different phases in which that I go through with people we focus on. But the first one is the strengths aspect. I think it's understanding and knowing who you are, because once we do that, then we can work forward through the different phases and steps.
No, that's incredibly interesting, Matt. And I think you're hitting on a very important point. And in other episodes I've done on Spearlift, there seems to be a similar thread with different experts such as yourself that I've spoken to about this idea in life in general that we need to almost kind of tap into the internalization of what we are, who we are, and really have an internal self-discovery. I think more than any other time in recent history, that's become an ever important issue to finally discover, to finally embrace more than anything. I mean, it's, there's been a movement in a sense I felt in certain years past, especially since the mid 2000s, where, people were embracing more of this yoga, meditation, things like that. But there was a similar thread going during all that time where, and up until now especially, where there was this kind of seeking for truth, for internal embracement, self-discovery, like you're saying, knowing who you are, knowing what you are, and people have done that in many other facets of religion and everything like that. And they're all important, right? They're all important to and I've always embraced, especially this idea of, and I'm at fault for not doing that well sometimes, for sure, but knowing thyself, really loving yourself first, and then sharing that with others, right? So,
Yeah.
And like you said, we are all special, but we almost have to know that, right? I mean, so it's the discovery, it's the journey with all this that is absolutely imperative. And what I see with what you're saying as well is also recognition, because you mentioned just a moment ago that this idea of like, okay, I've dealt with this in my life and being bipolar and things like that. Like myself personally, I have OCD issues, and I did an episode recently with a doctor from here in Mexico where we're talking about stigma around mental health. I think we got to get through that. That's a huge issue in our society. We can't assume perfection. I think that's one of the biggest barriers, right? We have to, the more we know, the more we accept, the more we get through the fatigue and cloud of self-doubt and depression, all those negative things, the more we can really embrace life, I feel, because it is, you have to admit as well, it is heavy and hard to live with. It feels like a fog, almost like a weird, mysterious fog that depression and self-doubt and all these things bring upon you that can't even get you or to the willingness of wanting to go forward, So I think it's incredibly important what you're saying. And can you just talk about more in detail then your way of helping people, like you said, identifying the strengths, and then can you just walk us through that in a bit more detail and how that process goes and how maybe possibly if there is a sort of story that maybe someone that you've helped really came out of a bad situation?
Yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that. And I also, just so that everybody understands too, I was also diagnosed with OCD as well. And I deal more with that than I deal with the depression and things like that is managed a little bit better. But the anxiety and the fears are a big part of what I have dealt with and what I continue to deal with. But what changed it for me back in 2015 was this whole discovery of who I was. I had been searching for years on who I could be and where I could be and what I could do. I mean, for years I was trying to figure out, well, okay, what am I going to do for work? What am I going to do for a career? Where am I going to go to school? What degree am I going to get? Just lots of questions. And so a lot of what I do is I work with people who are in very similar situations where they're trying to figure out, okay, I know I've got these skills, I know I've got these talents, but how do I use them? Where am I supposed to go? What do I do? And so, I've got a lot of different stories, I guess, but one that I can think of specifically is and like I said, as I go through with people, I introduce them to this idea of, and I use an assessment. It's a tool. It's not something that, like I said, is set in stone and something that people have to do, but I like to use it because I think, number one, it's proven. Don Clifton, Tom Rath, these are professionals who have done the research and did it for years on identifying ways in which we could identify people's strengths and pulling a lot of the different unique things, because everybody has something somewhere. And so as I walk through with people, one of the things that we do is we do a deep dive discovery into who we are. And what that has done for my clients has been transformational. More specifically, I've got a story of a gentleman that I worked with who was in college, just graduated from high school, I guess. Was a young man who was trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and he knew he had skills and strengths and talents. And we had a journey that we went through, and it was so my program is 3 different phases. It's 12 weeks long. Typically, it can be shorter if somebody wants, but typically this is not a quick fix, one day meet and be done. Our discovery of who we are takes more than just an overnight thing. And so for me, it was a journey. I worked with this individual for 12 weeks. And what we did was basically the first thing is discovering who we are, and we set goals and we come up with, okay, well, where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year? What do you want to be doing? What kind of impact do you want to have? And as we went through this, this young man was able to identify who he wanted to be in and what's changed for him. And I still communicate with him to this day, but what's changed for him is he is now involved in a program at the university that he is still at and is graduating from, that has changed his life. He's in a leadership program now that he discovered, and it was largely impacted because of what we had gone through to discover who he was. And now he's been able to use his skills and talents to bless other people's lives. And he's a leader at the university, and he would never have known how to even discover that until he had first done that internal discovery of who he was. And I'm not saying that I did anything amazing and whatever. My clients are the ones that do that. I'm just I'm the coach, so to speak. I'm there on the sidelines to just ask questions and get to know and find, help them find their deeper solutions. And
facilitating them, no?
Yeah, I'm the facilitator. I'm that quarterback that just says, okay, well, what about this? Have you looked into this? And we do that deep dive discovery, but it's been largely impactful, and that's one of many stories that I can think of. But to your point, I don't believe, and this is particular, I think, with anybody, I don't think we can move forward with nutrition. So my program starts with this discovery of self, and then it moves into, okay, well, how are we eating? Are we exercising? Are we sleeping? There's a lot of different things, because number one, if we don't know who we are, then we can't really go anywhere else. We've got to start there, discovery of self, and then once we know what we're good at and how we can use those strengths, then we tailor the rest of the program to, okay, are we exercising? Because exercise is key to mental health. Are we sleeping? Are we eating right? Are we getting the proper nutrition? All of that process. And then at the end, it's, okay, now what are we going to do with all of this information? What action are we going to take? And what are we going to move? How are we going to move forward? And so the last phase is a 3 to 6 week opportunity where they get a chance to take action and implement some of the things that they've learned and into whatever it is that they want to do, the goals that they have and things like that. So that's a brief, in a nutshell, synopsis of kind of what the journey is. But
yeah, no, Matt, that's incredibly interesting and absolutely important in the sense that what you're describing is really it's an integral way in which we try to live the best life we can, right? It involves several, wheels turning at different times and all at once, it seems like, in its own way, because it can't really, I find it personally, and speaking with so many other people, that it's really about essentially balance. There's certain balance points in our lives, moment by moment, day by day, that we really have to attune to make it all work. It's almost like it feels that it almost feels not normal to not feel happy sometimes, which is weird, but sure. It's almost like you're always, for some people, and myself included, on certain days for sure, it's almost like I have to fight to really be happy, right? I really have to fight to make it all work, to really make it feel like today has been, let's say, an optimal day in some sense, sure. Right? Because sure. It's about eating right, it's about the exercises, it's about your state of mind, it's about everything. It's like you always sure. have to put the things together to make it all work, and it just can be overwhelming. And I think it's really important. So I'm really curious with your program and what you do to help people. Mm-hmm. It's, for me personally, the way I see it, like I'm describing you and kind of relating it to the way that you're putting forth what you're saying, is that it's really it's each and every day, each and every hour, to get on the path you really need to want. It's a journey. It's really a journey. It's like, okay, I'm done with this, I'll be good the rest of my life. It's not like that. It's all the time. So how through your program and how you work with people, how do you really, let's say, what is it that's part of that really keeps people on track with where you can help facilitate them to go? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I mean, I provide a lot of different resources and tools for people to kind of review. So as part of the journey that people go through, we do focus a lot on gratitude journaling. And so I'll have people, whether it's in the morning or at night, whatever they feel most comfortable with, write down some of the things that they're grateful for, whether it's 2 or 3 different things that they were either grateful for the day before, or what are some of the things that they were grateful for of that day. What are some of the goals that they have to look forward to for the rest of the day? We do focus on, I guide them to resources around meditation and mindfulness, because I think that's key as well. Again, as long as we're, I think that's a big tool of understanding that we have busyness around us, and it's okay to be aware of those thoughts and feelings that we have, like noticing what they are and saying, okay, well, I'm either having an anxious thought, or I'm feeling really stressed right now. And what is that? Recognizing, okay, what is that feeling, and being okay with it, sitting with it and going, all is good. Like, the world isn't crashing down on me. Like, everything's fine. But that's an interesting thought that I'm having. So really helping people tap in and realize and recognize the thoughts that they have, being okay with them, sitting with them. So that's part of it. But then also, if we need to, I guide them to resources. So I'm not a nutritionist, but I have tools and information and resources to guide people to that they can tap into to guide them through a nutrition plan. So my wife is a certified integrative nutrition coach, and so she's someone that I used to work with people who want to change their diet, or if they want to lose weight, or just want to eat healthier, right? So because I think what we eat affects our brains, and there's a whole other research around our gut and what goes in there and how that affects our brain, and I could do a whole segment on that, and we talk a lot about because if our brain needs the nutrients, the proper nutrients, not just junk food, or sugar or fats, or certain kinds of fats, right? So oils and different things like that. There are certain things that we need, our brains need, in order to function properly. So but we've got to discover who we are first. And then I think after that, once we're able to sit with and recognize, and again, in that journey, and I'm not saying someone has to be 100% positive all the time, every single minute of every single day, because I don't think that that's realistic. There is negativity around us. There's a lot that comes. We all have bad days, and I am not perfect at it either. I'm not saying that like I'm super uber positive all the time. I don't think that's something that I'm trying to tell my clients, that you have to be positive every minute, every hour of every day. What I try to do is try to help guide them and give them tools and resources to come back to positivity, because something happens. There's a rewiring, a thing that our brain that happens when we focus on more positive thoughts rather than negative ones. Because if we're focusing on the negative, that leads us to depression, anxiety, stress, and that leads us down the road we don't want to go on. Any negativity, criticism, blame, anger, frustration, whatever that is, leads us down a path we don't want to go. So I do try to give people resources to come back to, what? It's okay. Like, maybe I want to try to see the good in whatever it is that I'm trying to do. We all have weaknesses. We all have things, and there are others around us that have weaknesses. And so what I try to do with with helping people discover who they are is being able to see others and themselves without judgment. I think that's the biggest key, is don't judge yourself, don't judge other people, because we don't know what somebody else is going through. We don't know what somebody else's strengths are. We all see the world in a different lens. Someone may see the world in a completely opposite lens than you do, and that's okay. It's fine. So there's a lot more to that, and I know we don't have a ton of time, but that's kind of in a nutshell part of the journey that I take people through. I think it's important.
No, it is. It absolutely is. And you hit on something that I think is absolutely crucial and kind of been similar theme of what we've been talking about. So up to this point so far is that it's about recognition. I think what we struggle, or maybe I'm generalizing, but I think what a lot of people do typically struggle with is the actual energy force of thinking one thing when it's not that way, right? Is the recognition and acceptance of many things in our life, whether it's just who you are as a person, as you talked about at the beginning, about many other situations, circumstances, outcomes, expectations, etc. There's a force behind that, and I'm interested. I've spoken to other people before about energy related topics, in life itself, but there's a resistance force that if we enact it through what we do in the way we think or act or be, etc., it's very detrimental to our state of being. So I think it's really important the way you are describing that and are talking about that and how you help your clients in that way is very important, because judgment is also a force, a resistance force that carries a lot of weight to it. So we're talking about, right?
Yeah, and I think that the energy plays a big role in what I do. And when we have negative energy, it affects our health. It affects our emotional level. It affects our spiritual level. It affects. So what I focus on is the emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial. There's a lot of different ways in which that we go that way. And one of the things, and I probably should have done this as we were talking before, but one of the things that I really try to help people understand, and this is one of the things that I learned in a coaching certification program, and I want to give credit to them through a company called People Acuity, and my mentor and friend Deanna Murphy gave me, and she's the CEO of People Acuity that I did a coach certification through. But one of the things that she teaches is this idea of I know who I am, I know who I'm not, and both are okay. So it's taking our hands, and I don't know if I can do this with my screen, but it's taking both hands here. One of my hands going, I know who I am, I know who I'm not, and both are okay.
Yeah.
And helping my clients recognize, I don't have to be, some people want to be a doctor. Some people want to be whatever. And maybe they don't have the strengths or the skills, or maybe they don't have the talent or that's maybe not their strength. Maybe, I always wanted to be an accountant. I thought maybe that would be, or something that I want to do, but I am not a data guy. I don't like numbers. I don't like, being by myself and doing a lot of the things that it would take to do that. My brain isn't wired as strategically. So that's okay, right? So it's coming with the idea of, well, who are you? And that's where really what I guide people to is, I know what I am, I know what I'm not, and both are okay. So recognizing the concept that if you can come to understand and be okay with who you are and the impact that you can have, maybe it's something you didn't realize that you were before. But once people realize that, it changes everything. And it's changed everything for my clients, because I think we think we know who we are, when sometimes we don't. And that's okay. And maybe we do. Maybe some people do, and that's awesome. But I'm here to help. But I help people who may not know. And I think in a lot of ways, sometimes we don't. We don't always know, and it's nice to have somebody else guide us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I don't know. I feel if anyone were to take away, something very particular from this conversation we're having now, is that, I don't use metaphors that often, but I just have this image in my mind as you're speaking, like just how water goes down, a mountain, or how a river flows just so with ease, through a stream, and then maybe down and going into a river, then a waterfall. The ease of which water moves and just flows and then goes, over rocks and many other things. I'm getting that image in my mind as you're speaking, because I think, and this might sound a bit naive on my part, but I really think we make life too difficult, because I think there's a natural flow that's always occurring in some way or another, a steady stream of how things really are, but we're using ingrained, like deep-seated forces from experience of life, day-to-day things, other things that conflict with our way of being and our energy that create so much resistance towards a very natural, beautiful way of being, that we just can't arrive there, you know? That's the way I see it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm completely wrong, but, you know?
No, I think you're right. I think that, I think you hit that nail on the head there. So
and
totally agree with that.
I'm so happy that you do help people in that way. And I think in our life and in this life that which we live in, these times in which we live in, you know, more people such as yourself that can help facilitate towards the ease and acceptance of many things, the recognition of many things, laying the burden off of many things is so important, because you can just, you know, really make the world a better place in that way, you know. And Matt, just to close this really insightful episode with you and for our viewers, what is your last message for people going into this next year, 2021? What is just that nugget of insight or hope or just inspiration you want to give them?
Well, I think you hit it. I mean, you just said it right there. I think that we can go into 2021 with hope, and I think that's the biggest thing that you know, we can trust that things will get better, and that if we can come to understand and know that we're okay, and that, you know, let's keep moving forward with that discovery of who we are, and trust that the future is bright. And as we move forward to this next year, understanding who we are, and that we'll be able to impact the world. And I think that there's so much coming out of 2020. People are recognizing and realizing different ways in which they can serve and create this big impact. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is hold on, keep moving forward, and keep discovering. And as you keep discovering, and as you keep identifying those things that you are, then 2021 is going to be an amazing year. And I think it is. I think really this 2020 creates such a learning and an impact for so many people in a lot of different ways. But I think we're going to come out of this in a very awesome and amazing way. And there's a lot of hope. So that would be my message. Yeah.
I completely agree with that. Absolutely do. And Matt, where can our viewers find more about you, follow you, all those things?
So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I've got a website too, and I'm on Twitter as well. I'm on all the major platforms, but Healthy Mindset Warrior is my business name. That's my handle for Facebook, Instagram, and my website is healthymindsetwarrior.com. So that's where people can learn about my program, and I actually offer a free journal prompt that people, a 5-question journal prompt that people can have as a freebie if they want to kind of learn how to journal, and that's that gratitude journaling that I've talked about. So those are the places people can find me. I'm excited to help reach as many people as I can.
Excellent. And viewers and listeners, will include all of Matt's information that he just mentioned in the descriptions where you can find it below this video. And we thank you so much again, Matt, and we will see you on the next episode, Spirit Lifters. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. Thank you so much, everybody.